When people talk about building an automated business, they focus almost entirely on getting clients. They talk about outreach, content, personal brand, funnels, pipelines, and messaging. But almost nobody talks about the part that actually matters once the client says yes: the delivery, the work, the output, the results. And the reason is simple. Delivery is the hardest part to scale. It's the part that drains time. It's the part that breaks when you don't have systems. It's the part that forces people to hire too early, burn out too fast, or cap their income because they can't handle more volume. For years, delivery was the part of my work that stopped me from growing. I could find clients. I could convert them. But once the work arrived, everything slowed down. Jobs piled up, deadlines got tight, and the whole idea of an automated business fell apart. Then I decided to rebuild everything from the ground up. And this is the system I built to deliver work automatically. The first thing I realized is that delivery isn't a single task. It's a chain. And every chain has weak links. If even one of them depends entirely on you, the entire operation collapses. So instead of thinking about delivery as something I do, I started thinking about delivery as something that flows, a sequence, a process, something predictable, something repeatable, something that could be mapped, standardized, and then automated. The system starts the moment a new client comes in. Traditionally, this is where chaos begins. You accept the work, and immediately the project becomes a cloud of loose tasks and unclear expectations. But I changed the first step entirely. When a client enters the system, the first thing that happens is classification. The AI reads what the client needs, compares it to previous projects, and maps it to a predefined template. This was the breakthrough. Because every service, no matter how creative, has patterns. Once you identify those patterns, you can structure them. And once you structure them, you can automate them. The second stage is requirements extraction. Instead of asking the client 1,000 questions or setting up long onboarding calls, the system extracts what it needs automatically. It reads documents, messages, descriptions, links, assets. It categorizes them. It summarizes them. It identifies missing pieces. And it asks the client only the questions that are necessary. This reduces friction. It removes confusion. It eliminates the back and forth that slows everything down. The third stage is generation. This is where most people imagine automation stops. But with AI, this has completely changed. The system generates the first version of any deliverable based on the template the project was mapped to. Whether it's writing, research, strategy, analysis, planning, or even technical content, the system produces a baseline draft that matches the structure of the service. Not a random output, a structured output. Something that already looks like the final deliverable. Something that removes 80% of the initial work. The fourth stage is refinement. And this is where AI becomes even more powerful. Because once you have a structured draft, refinement becomes predictable. The system compares the draft to a quality standard. It checks for clarity, tone, structure, gaps, inconsistencies, formatting, and alignment with the client's objective. It improves the work through iterations, it polishes, it adjusts, it rewrites, it elevates. Each iteration gets closer to the expected result. And the best part is that the system learns. Every corrected output becomes training material. The more it produces, the better it becomes. The fifth stage is contextualization. This is what makes the work feel custom. People assume automation produces generic results. But that's only true if the system has no context. My delivery engine takes context from 3 places: the client, the industry, and my own style. It adapts the deliverable based on the client's preferences, the specific niche they're in, and the type of output I usually deliver. This means every project feels personalized even though the workflow is automated. The sixth stage is review, but review no longer means endless editing. It means verification. The system checks the deliverable against the initial requirements. It checks tone, logic, structure, accuracy, and completeness. If something is missing, it fixes it. If something is unclear, it improves it. If something is inconsistent, it rewrites it. This step is where quality is guaranteed without manual oversight. The seventh stage is formatting. This used to be the part that drained the most time. Turning text into a document, turning a plan into a file, turning insights into a visual. Preparing something clean, organized, and ready to send. Now the system handles this automatically. It exports content into the right format. It applies the correct layout. It organizes sections. It creates summaries. It generates visuals. It prepares everything in a professional format that requires minimal or zero manual touch. The eighth stage is delivery. Not the act of sending the work, but the experience. The system packages the deliverable, writes a concise explanation, outlines the logic behind the work, and communicates the next step. This makes the delivery feel intentional, not automated. It makes the client feel understood. It makes the process feel controlled, structured, and personalized. The ninth stage is improvement. After each delivery, the system analyzes feedback. It learns from what the client liked. It learns from what the client didn't mention. It learns from what the client corrected. This feedback updates the templates, the generation patterns, the refinement logic, and the contextual understanding. Over time, the engine becomes more accurate, faster, smarter, more aligned, and eventually, more consistent than a human. The 10th stage is reuse. Most people don't realize that every project they deliver contains reusable elements, frameworks, sentences, ideas, structures, approaches, insights. When you do everything manually, you never reuse them because you don't have time to collect them. But the system collects everything. It disassembles finished work into reusable building blocks, and those blocks become part of the engine, which means each project strengthens the next one. The reason this system works is simple. AI is not replacing creativity. It is replacing repetition. The repetitive part of delivery is what consumes time and energy. The creative part remains yours, but now it's amplified. Because the system does the heavy lifting, and your job becomes oversight, strategy, and refinement, not manual production. Once this system was built, something changed. I stopped feeling overwhelmed. I stopped feeling like every client added weight. I stopped delaying work. I stopped worrying about scaling. Delivery became predictable. It became structured. It became automatic. And because delivery became automatic, the entire business became scalable. I want to make something clear. This system didn't remove my involvement completely. It removed the low-leverage tasks, the draining tasks, the repetitive tasks, the work that didn't require my brain but still required my time. And once those tasks disappeared, everything else became easier. It became enjoyable. It became sustainable. And the best part is that anyone can build this. You don't need to be technical. You don't need to be a programmer. You don't need a team. You need clarity. You need to understand your own process. You need to break it into steps. And then you need to automate the parts that repeat, the parts that take too long, the parts that don't need a human. In the next video, I'll show you the internal architecture of my delivery system, the templates, the workflows, the loops, the refinements, and the way each part influences the next. Because once you see the structure, you'll realize something important. Automated delivery isn't about tools. It's about thinking in systems. And once you start thinking in systems, the way you work changes forever.